It is Monday, which means that it's the start of a new week, and of course there's new video game news to talk about. And today on the channel I want to cover 4 different stories that I find very interesting. First off, we need to talk about the Gears 5 controversy. Gears 5 had the best and worst opening week in Gears of War franchise history. How is that possible? We'll talk about it in just a moment. Marvelous is a very interesting company. Daemon X Machina just released, but a lot of people are not talking about that game. And we're going to sort of break down why and how this is having a big implication on future Marvelous titles. There's a big Nintendo Switch eShop sale going on right now, but only in one specific region. And finally, Square Enix is bringing even more games to the Nintendo Switch library, and they're coming very soon. So what are these new games coming? What's going on with Marvelous? What is this Gears 5 controversy? We're gonna break it all down in this video. So sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about what's going on in the world of video game news.
Hey, RGT85. Hey, Sean.
Oh my God, it's Stevie Richards! So Gears 5 obviously was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, Xbox One games for 2019. Microsoft has been sort of shying away from the Xbox One in 2019, and obviously Gears 5 is one of the swan songs of the system. A lot of Gears of War fans were looking forward to this game, and while I haven't had a chance to check it out quite yet, I will be checking out this game because, little known fact about me, Gears of War was actually the reason I picked up my Xbox 360 originally back in the day, because I was just so blown away by that game. So I am a fan of the Gears of War franchise. But Gears 5 definitely has a bit of a controversy going on right now because it had the best and the worst opening week in Gears of War franchise history. So how is that possible? How did it have the best and the worst? Well, the best is in terms of player base. Xbox announced today that over 3 million people played Gears 5 over the launch weekend of this game. Of course, this game is available on the Xbox One and PC, so that the user base is a bit bigger than previous Gears games, but still, over 3 million people playing your game is obviously a very impressive feat and a very good sign for the Gears franchise. It shows that people are still interested in Gears, and Gears 5 seems to be reviewing very well. It seems like a game that most people that are playing it are enjoying. So how did it have the worst opening week in Gears franchise history, along with having 3 million people playing this game? Well, we have to talk about the sales of the game. We have our first sales figures for Gears 5 coming out of the UK, and in the first week, Gears 5 managed to move 22,000 copies. 22,000 copies! That is substantially down over other entries in the Gears of War franchise. Now, you have to look at this as the fact that, of course, Gears 5 was available day one on Game Pass. But what's interesting is, where do you sort of draw the line with Game Pass? Obviously, having people play your game is a very important thing, but I also feel like having people buy your game is an important thing as well. You want game sales to happen so that these companies that are making these games are obviously getting more revenue. What's really interesting is Phil Spencer was once quoted as saying that he felt Game Pass would lead to more game sales for Xbox One games because people would play the game on Game Pass and then want to pick up the game otherwise. But a lot of people just seem to be getting Game Pass for this $1 or $2 increments that it's constantly on sale for, and then playing these big AAA titles. Is this a business model that can really sustain itself? Can you go to your investors, if you're Microsoft, and say, we have 3 million people playing our game? Okay, well, how many people bought the game? But it doesn't matter because we have 3 million people playing the game. Like, it's definitely a very slippery slope, and this is obviously one of the biggest games that has released on Game Pass day in with other versions of the game. You've had things like Forza and, of course, State of Decay 2, Sea of Thieves, but really those games don't really hold a candle when you're talking about a big experience like a Gears game. So really, I'm interested to see the business side of this, how this is going to play out for Microsoft in the future, because if you're giving away your games at just $1 or $2 a month as opposed to the $60 retail release, is this a sustainable business model? Is this something you can continually do with your first-party games? I guess time will tell, but it's definitely a very interesting controversy going on with Gears 5. Next up, I want to give you guys a heads up on a massive Nintendo Switch eShop sale going on right now, but not in the United States, or Japan, or Europe, or Australia, any of the major companies that you probably have an account registered in if you like to download games from other regions. You're not going to have this. This is actually a Nintendo of Argentina, yes, Argentina, only eShop event that's going on, but there are some major games that are on sale for very, very low prices. Right now, in the Nintendo of Argentina eShop, you can get Katana Zero for $3, Hollow Knight for $3, Stardew Valley for $3, Celeste for $4, Wargroove for $4, Hotline Miami Collection for $5, and Risk of Rain 2, which just came out on the Nintendo Switch, for $8. So if you want to take advantage of this eShop sale, it's admittedly pretty easy. The first step is you have to set up a Nintendo of Argentina eShop account. That'll just take you a few minutes. You basically just have to verify an email address, and then you have to get currency for the Nintendo of Argentina eShop store. Now there's many websites out there that sell digital eShop cards. I purchase them all the time because I have an account in Japan, I have an account in Australia and Europe, because there's different sales that happen there, and of course some games come out earlier in Japan and Australia than they do in the United States. And then once you do that, you're pretty much all set. You go, you purchase the games, they pop up just like you purchased them in the US eShop, and they're available to play on your Nintendo Switch. So if you want to take advantage of this sale, it's pretty easy to do, and honestly, with some of these game prices, I highly suggest you do, because there's a lot of great games here for a lot of low prices. So let me know in the comments section down below if you plan on picking up any of these games, because really, there's some good games here at some very, very low prices. Next up, I want to talk a bit about Marvelous, because Marvelous seems to be getting a bit out of control, no pun intended, we'll cover that in just a moment, when it comes to their games. So Marvelous obviously just released Daemon X Machina in conjunction with Nintendo late last week for the Nintendo Switch, a big first-party Nintendo Switch game, a Switch exclusive. So why aren't a lot of YouTube channels covering this game? Well, if you watch the Spawncast, you would be well aware, but in case you're not aware, basically what's happening is Marvelous of Japan is copyright striking all footage of Daemon X Machina. So if I were to make a video on Daemon X Machina and talk about the game on my channel, that video would not be able to make any revenue. Now, of course, if you're a big company or something like that, if you're an IGN, a big website, you can afford to do something like that. But if you're an individual, just an individual YouTuber, do you really want to put time and effort into reviewing a game that you're not even going to be able to make money off of when there's so many other games coming out that around the same time, and there's so many other companies that actually want you to cover their game, whereas Marvelous doesn't seem to want you to cover their game. And what's really weird to me is Daemon X Machina at its core is admittedly a pretty niche game. Sure, giant mech games are big in Japan, but when it comes to like stateside stuff, they're not quite as big. It's sort of a niche game, and when you have so many games coming out for the Nintendo Switch in the month of September, you would think that Marvelous would want all the publicity they could get on this game, but they really don't. But what's really crazy about what's going on with Marvelous is this is actually now trickling into Control. I saw OJ from Player Essence made a post about this on Twitter, and basically Marvelous is publishing Control, which of course just came out for the Xbox One and PS4 in Japan. So now Marvelous is actually copyright claiming Control footage from the States because they're simply publishing that game in Japan. Marvelous's ID copyright strikes are ridiculous when it comes to video games. This is such an old way of thinking. Even Nintendo came around on this, yet you have Marvelous, which is a niche company to begin with that does a lot of niche games, doesn't want to have people promote their games on YouTube. Marvelous, you really need to get your shit together with this, because it's just going to hurt more games in the long run. And considering that Marvelous is doing a lot of games on the Nintendo Switch, if you don't get coverage on these games from the Nintendo Switch, they might end up bombing. And finally, Square Enix is a company that's been supporting the Nintendo Switch for quite a while now. We have seen a lot of Square Enix games come to the platform, and of course, Dragon Quest XI is coming out next week for the Nintendo Switch. But what if you want more RPGs? What if you want more Square Enix games? What are you going to do in that situation? Well, Square Enix has announced that next week, yes, next week, you'll be able to purchase 3 more Dragon Quest games on your Nintendo Switch. Dragon Quest 1, Dragon Quest 2, and Dragon Quest 3 will be coming to the Nintendo Switch on the same day as Dragon Quest 11. Now, these versions of the game are actually based on the mobile versions of the game that came out a couple years ago. I kind of wish they would have done maybe the Game Boy Color version of Dragon Quest 3, which was of course known as Dragon Warrior 3, because I think that art style looks a little bit better. I'm not really completely sold on the art style that they used in Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 for mobile devices, but still, this is a good way to experience the Dragon Quest franchise if you've never played these games before. Now, the pricing of these games is kind of interesting. Dragon Quest 1 will be available for $5. Dragon Quest 2 will be available for $6.49, and Dragon Quest 3 will be available for $12.49. So it doesn't seem like there's going to be any sort of bundle with this, which is kind of weird. It will be digital only in the United States. However, there is a version that's releasing in Japan that supposedly has English translation on it that will be a physical version of the game. You could pick it up on places like Play Asia, but it's crazy to see more Dragon Quest games coming to the Nintendo Switch. I'm kind of wondering why they didn't release these games maybe a week before, like maybe this week, to come out on the Nintendo Switch, so that way people could actually have a chance to check out these games before playing Dragon Quest XI. But I guess it's sort of like a Doom situation. Of course, they're releasing Doom 64 on the same day as Doom Eternal in November for the Nintendo Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. So if you want more Dragon Quest, you want more Square Enix, you want more RPGs, well, you're in luck, because next week you're getting 3 more. Alright, so those were 4 stories that I wanted to cover on the channel today, so let me know in the comment section down below what you think of all this. Do you think the Game Pass business model is sustainable? Do you think low sales for games like Gears 5 will really impact things like investors when it comes to Microsoft? What do you think about more Dragon Quest coming to the Nintendo Switch? Are you planning on picking up any of the eShop sales that are going on in Argentina? And do you sort of understand why Marvelous is pigeonholing themselves when it comes to their upcoming game? And as always, guys, thank you guys for watching this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Be sure to check out other videos on the channel, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.